Today, why you feel stuck and unmotivated and what's actually happening in your nervous system. Welcome to Sacred Grit, a podcast equipping men to conquer addiction and overcome inner struggles through physical, mental, and spiritual disciplines so you can become a man of honor and integrity. I'm Jason Lyle. Now let's get to work. Today you'll learn depression is a shutdown response, not laziness. You lose access to clear thinking when you're shut down, and the way out starts with small physical action. This episode is brought to you by David Dodd, Edward Jones McDonough. What's up, my dude? Welcome back to the Sacred Grit podcast. Now, we have been talking lately about mental health, and last week we talked about anger, and this week I want to dive into depression. So, what is depression? How does it operate? So many men struggle with depression, and when they do, they feel like a failure, or they feel like they're lazy, or they feel like something's wrong. So I just want to talk a little bit this Sunday about depression, and then on Wednesday I'm going to give you some tools. All right, so here we go. Depression is a shutdown response, not laziness. In your autonomic nervous system, there are 4 different modes that it can kick you into. There's probably more in sub-modes, and people could argue this, but I'm going to stick with these 4. Fight or flight, right? That's what we talked about last week. That's anger and running away. Freeze or fawn. Freezing up, fawn being like, think of playing possum, just laying down and giving up. So when you are in depression, you are in that freeze or fawn state of your autonomic nervous system. And usually this happens during overload, right? So your system takes in so much information and it gets so stimulated, and you have all these triggers that are happening all at once. And so it just completely shuts down. And the thing about this is once you get into that loop, it kind of becomes a self-defeating process. So, and if you've ever been depressed, and I have been depressed, you know what I mean when I say you start to ruminate, right? And the rumination thing is you start going, this is so bad, and this happens, and this, every time this happens, that happens. Or you'll use words like always or never. They always do this. They never do that. And so there's this rumination of thinking. All right. So it's just overloaded. And so your nervous system pulls the brake. So when you get into that response, you lose access to clear thinking because you're shut down, right? So think about, we've talked about this before, the prefrontal cortex goes offline, and the irrational amygdala is what's firing. So you're into depression. And a lot of people will think, well, I'll just, think my way out of this. I'm just going to focus on something positive. I'm just going to, listen to some uplifting music, or go to church and listen to the pastor preach a good sermon, and that'll get me going again. But listen to me, you don't have access to rational thought. That's the reason why you continue to ruminate on the depressive thoughts, because your nervous system has tricked itself into believing that depression is what's going to save it, right? Think about it long enough. If you think about when a possum plays possum, in quotation marks, it's playing dead in hopes that its predator will leave it alone and it could eventually get back up and walk away unscathed. That's exactly what your nervous system is doing. Your nervous system is shutting you down because, remember, it's not rational. It's not logical. It's not some sort of response based off of good data. It is simply just a response of your body that is happening in order to try to protect you. So trying to think your way out of it is not going to get you there, right? You may eventually get there in other ways, and then you can think your way out of it, but you've got to start in that direction first, okay? So the way out starts with small physical action. So you don't wait to feel better. You want to move first. You want to head in a positive direction with your body. The theologian Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan monk, says it this way: you cannot think yourself into a new way of being, but you can act yourself into a new way of thinking. And that is very true. The way that we act is going to lead to the way that we think every single time. Now, We'll talk about this a little bit more on Gritty Wednesday, but for today, I want you to start thinking through this because it makes complete sense. And you've probably experienced this 100 times before. You're kind of laying on the couch and you're just not feeling it. And you're like, I just want to lay here and watch TV, but I really need to whatever, go to the gym, go for a walk, go for a run, go do whatever that may be. And you've been procrastinating, right? So that thing starts to ruminate. Well, I really need to go, but I'm just not going to. I really need to go, but here's what I'd rather do. And so, but eventually, check this out. You get up off the couch, or you get up out of the chair, or you turn into the parking lot, or you make the hard phone call, or you have the hard conversation, or whatever it is that you do. And immediately you start to feel better, right? You leave the gym and you look at your buddy and you say something like, dude, I'm so glad we came. Or you get up at 5 a.m. and you go hunting or whatever, and you look over at your buddy that afternoon and go, God, I'm so glad I did that. Or instead of binge watching TV, you go sit on your back porch and take a pencil and a piece of paper and you draw to be creative. And you go, oh man, I'm just so glad I did that. See, those actions start to change the chemistry of the brain, and we start to change the way that we think. And that, my friend, is how we get out of depression. Okay. So the way out starts with small physical action. Now on Gritty Wednesday, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But for right now, I just want you to hold on to these 3 ideas. And so the 3 ideas you learned today are this: depression is a shutdown response, not laziness. Remember, think, play, and possum. You lose access to clear thinking when you're shut down. And finally, the way out starts with small physical action. All right, my dude, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. These things have absolutely changed my life. I want to share them with everyone I can. There is a new school course out, Nervous System Regulation Basics. The link is in the show notes. You can click that, go and purchase the course. It is ready to go. Check it out, and hopefully it'll help you change your life, my man. All right, this episode is brought to you by MMB Dentistry, my good friend Jody Morgan down in Griffin, Georgia. He is one of the finest men I've ever met, and he is partners with 2 other dentists at MMB Dentistry, and they can cover all your dentistry needs. They are worth the drive. They have 1 location in Griffin, Georgia, and 1 location in Zebulon, Georgia. All right, my dude, I hope you have a great week. I will see you on Gritty Wednesday.